starting the recording now. So for those of you who don't know, for those of you who haven't been to one of these strategy sessions before, essentially back in December of 2020, we did a strategy consultation across the whole organization, Animal Rebellion UK. So this was looking at, someone just muted me. So this is looking at what the organization has been working on, so what Animal Rebellion UK has been working on, and what people felt should be the goals of the organization moving forward. So the consultation, which happened over a month, talked to about 20 different teams from within Animal Rebellion UK, and got feedback on what our goals should be for 2021. So as a result of that, after the consultation, we delivered a presentation about the key findings of that consultation. That can be found on YouTube for those of you who missed it, under our messaging, I think, playlist. And basically, we kind of found some key areas that people were really interested in focusing in on 2021. So since then, the strategy team and other teams within Animal Rebellion have kind of been taking those key areas and trying to transform them into a bit of a guide and a roadmap for what 2021 might look like. So today I'm just going to be giving a bit of an update, and I want to clarify that, none of this is concrete or set in stone. We're a flexible, ever-changing organization. But what I'm going to be talking about today is some kind of key events and moments that we're hoping to really be using and jumping on board with in 2021. So before I jump into the PowerPoint, I want to say that I will be focusing primarily on Animal Rebellion UK during this presentation. And the reasoning is for that is just because, I'm part of the UK strategy team. As we all know, there's many similarities that we share in different parts of the world. There's also many differences. So we can't really pretend or think that we can speak for the whole of the world from our nest in the UK. So, we really support other teams to work on developing their own strategies and international groups. And we're happy to help out with that with trainings and development sessions as well. So I'll jump in now to the presentation, which hopefully I'm thinking should last about half an hour to 50 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions and discussion. So here we go. Oh, we have something in the chat. So I'm just gonna figure out how to play this. Never seem to be able to. Here we go. So the road ahead, what's happening this year? So as I said, this is kind of a preliminary look at the year and some key events and moments that we're hoping to jump on board with. So very introduction, I'm sure most of you have seen this before, always good as a refresher. Who is Animal Rebellion? We're a mass movement. We use nonviolent civil disobedience, and we do this to bring about a transition to a just and sustainable plant-based food system. And the reason we do this is an attempt to halt mass extinction. No, to halt mass extinction. We don't try, we do. Alleviate the worst effects of climate breakdown and ensure justice for animals. So we are animal and climate justice. That's our twin purposes. This is what we're striving towards. This is what everything we do is moving towards. We're all about, we want to be connected to the movement for global justice as well, and anti-oppression. We're about system change. So that means we often we don't focus on individual messaging, talking about individual changes. We're focused on changing the system and making it a fair and just system. And we're grounded in community. So our local groups are our strength. And I know that there's quite a few people here tonight who are from local groups. So that's fantastic. So thanks so much for coming. So what is our strategy? We talk a lot about strategy, and the simplest way we can kind of see strategy is in something like this, which is a strategy pyramid. So at the top, you have your strategic objective, you have your strategic milestones, and these are steps along the way to help you get to your objective. Then you have campaigns, which are a series of actions or a collection of actions which have a shared specific goal. Then you have your tactics, and we often call these actions. So these are the things that we do to help advance our strategy. So our strategic objective as Animal Rebellion usually, you know, across the world, again, like I've kept it specific to the UK right here, is a just and sustainable plant-based food system. Our milestones are things like raising public awareness and shifting the conversation. So we want to make it so that in kind of public consciousness, animal farming and animal agriculture is kind of completely and like linked to climate change, so that it becomes that a transition to a plant-based food system is synonymous with ending the climate crisis. We also want this messaging to become a key part of the climate movement. I'm sure a lot of you do work with the climate movement, which we do as well. And we know that animal agriculture is often left off the table when talking about issues that are affecting the climate crisis. So we want to shift that, and we want to make sure that Greenpeace, other environmental groups, XR, are taking a strong stance on animal farming and fishing and making it part of their campaigns. We also want to become part of the political discourse. So we want there to be political conversation and political movement on a shift to a plant-based food system. And we also do want to see the climate movement be successful in its aims. We're a sister group to XR, so we work in collaboration with them. So we have this, we share the same 3 demands as well as Extinction Rebellion. So as I mentioned earlier, in December of 2020, sorry, my face just went yellow because of the brightness of this screen. So apologies for that. But, you know, the brightness, I think, reflects how exciting and bright this strategy consultation was. But we found a lot of really interesting things from the strategy consultation that we did in December. And 4 of those things that we found, which were some of the key findings and the key takeaways from the strategy consultation, was that people really wanted to see a win in the media. And what we meant by what people meant by this was that they wanted to see Animal Rebellion talked about as its own entity. So rather than being conflated with Extinction Rebellion, they wanted to see actions that we did getting in the media, and they wanted to see, you know, more of a connection between our like campaigns and targeted messaging kind of happening in the media. People also wanted to see mass mobilization, which of course was really hard in 2020, and there's going to be challenges with that into the future as well, I imagine. But people did want to see like big rebellion style actions, as we've done in previous years, happening again. People also wanted to see us grow internally as an organization. So increasing the number of volunteers we have in teams within Animal Rebellion, increasing the number of full-time and part-time volunteers, and increasing kind of our internal strength, organization, and efficiency. And a big one as well was that people wanted to see our campaigns making political impact. So we wanted to see wins happening. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, my charger, sorry about that, talk a little bit about our campaigns. So sorry, everyone, my computer is about to die. We're going to talk a little bit about our campaigns in just a minute. The frantic rush to make sure I didn't just completely black out on you there. All good now. Apologies for that. As well as these kind of areas of impact that people wanted to see, we also had some key areas of growth. So these were areas that were kind of flagged in the strategy consultation as things that Animal Rebellion could get better at doing, things that we want to improve on. So one of these was getting connected, building collaboration, building coalitions with other movements. So this is something kind of that really kind of came up again and again as something that we wanted to see happening in 2021, so that we're working with other movements in the climate movement, but also in other social justice movements as well. People also wanted to see us visioning the future more, and whether this be through our actions, showing a vision of an alternative that we wanted to see, or also through things like CEC centers, which are these spaces for community and, you know, connection and development, and kind of showing the world that we want to live in, which is one based on community and justice. People also wanted to see Animal Rebellion developing more support for its kind of like global networks. And, you know, we have a lot of international groups, but actions and kind of messaging so far has been primarily focused in the UK. So we wanted to see more of a support network developing around our international presence and what a truly global movement might look like. So we also looked a little bit about what our focus would be in 2021. And this is what I'm going to talk about a little bit here. So a really big thing that came up when we were doing the strategy consultation, and also since then, is that our messaging has been quite successful so far, which is really exciting. We're seeing a lot of groups, such as the Vegan Society and PETA, adopting this idea of a plant-based food system. When Animal Rebellion launched back in June of 2019, we launched with a lot of support. We launched with a big meeting between a lot of animal rights groups in the UK, which led to the official Animal Rights March being Animal Rebellion's official launch, alongside a lot of other groups, including Surge, Veganuary, and many others. But we've also faced our share of controversy, as many groups have. But what we've seen largely is that there is a shift in society happening, where people are starting to accept that food system change is going to be part of addressing the climate and ecological emergency. So recent research that came out showed that, particularly amongst young people, they're really seeing that there's a need for more sustainable forms of farming to address the climate crisis, and also changes to the way that we eat. So we don't know whether this is our doing or not. I think it's a combination of many things. But what is exciting is that this really gives us the opportunity to embed this messaging of a plant-based food system and animal justice, and embed it within the climate justice movement, and kind of get to this point where it's widely understood that you can't end the climate emergency without ending the animal emergency. So we had this opportunity to mobilize around this and make sure that in the climate movement, animals' voices will be heard, and also the issue of animal agriculture will be addressed. And what's giving us this opportunity is, in a large way, COP26. So COP26 is the UN Climate Change Conference, and it's happening in November of this year in Glasgow. So basically this year in the UK, we have two really major conferences happening. There's the G7 happening in June in Cornwall, and there's COP26 happening in the UK, happening in Glasgow in November. So in both of these, climate change is going to be on the agenda. So G7, climate change and post-COVID recovery look like they're going to be the two main topics of conversation. And in COP, that's all about reviewing the Paris Agreement and the kind of targets set with that. So both of these are going to be massive opportunities for groups across the world and around the UK to be bringing our issues to the table and making sure that they can't be ignored. So when we're talking about COP, this is not going to only be delegates inside. This is going to be kind of all the major environmental groups, all the major protest groups across the UK kind of coming together to try and make sure that the issues aren't ignored, and that they're going to be talked about, and there's going to be decisions that are going to be taking real action on the climate crisis. So we want to mobilize around COP this year. We want to be part of this massive mobilization that's already going to be happening across the movement. We want to make sure that Animal Rebellion's messaging is included in that. And one way that we're hoping to do that is that at the moment there's in development this idea of a coalition, which would be mobilizing for a massive show of numbers on the first day of COP, with a big march which brings together lots of different groups within the kind of animal justice community, to make sure that this message of a plant-based food system is loud and clear right from the beginning, as well as, Animal Rebellion's usual civil disobedience and iconic creative actions. I'm going to touch a little bit more on the idea of COP a little bit later on, and I'll send out these slides as well after the presentation. So if we go back to our pyramid that I mentioned earlier, the focus here is really on this idea of becoming a dominant part of the climate movement. So, you know, we're still a very young organization as Animal Rebellion, and we're really starting to, especially with the Plant-Based Councils campaign, which I'll touch on in a second, start to kind of make a little bit of a headway into the political arena and start to get wins in that area. But still, what our main strength is that we form a really unique bridge between the climate justice and the animal justice communities. And by occupying that area, we have this really unique opportunity to make sure that animal agriculture and animal farming and fishing is being talked about when climate justice and environmental and the climate and ecological emergency is being talked about. So this is an area of focus that G7 and COP really give us this year, because Animal Rebellion has just gotten to the point where, you know, our actions are being kind of taken notice of by groups like XR, because we've, you know, done these great media inspiring actions. So now we have this opportunity to build these coalitions and build these collaborations, like I talked about earlier on when we were talking about those growth opportunities from the strategy consultation. When we're talking about these big scale conferences, we also don't want to forget that there's a lot happening on the local scale right now. So I think a few of you here, maybe if you want to put your hands up, are already running this campaign, the Feed Our Future campaign. So maybe if people want to give a little wave up in the air. Yep, quite a few people. And so basically what this is a campaign. Oh, sorry about that. This is a campaign run by local groups in Animal Rebellion at a local level. And what it does is talk to kind of like local councils and attempt to shift the narrative in that way about the food that we eat and its connection to climate change. So there's a couple of demands. One is that all food served at local council events be plant-based. Another is that there be 2 vegetarian days per week at all primary schools that the council kind of has influence over the kind of food at. And that the reason that it's only that, like 2 days a week, is because currently the national food guidelines, that's kind of the max that you can get. But we are looking at developing a campaign around addressing those national food guidelines as well, which would then open the doors for this local campaign to do even more. And the other demand is that councillors bring up the food guidelines with the MPs, their local MPs as well, to talk about getting those changed. So at the moment, it's mandatory that schools serve meat 3 days a week and dairy once a day. And of course, we know how outdated that is. So this is happening at a local level, and this is already seeing kind of people being able to have conversations and influence their kind of local communities in the direction that we want to move. And it's also creating those connections that we can't talk about, net zero emissions. We can't talk about ending the climate emergency or kind of addressing the climate emergency without talking about the food system that we kind of all are affected by. So when we think about these two things, this idea of COP as a big mobilization event and this idea of this council's campaign happening on a local level, we can see how it has the potential to really tick all these boxes that were flagged in the strategy consultation as being key areas that we're wanting to look at. So we can see how, big events, big mass mobilization, as well as kind of exciting creative actions at COP will really see that win in the media that we want to see. We can see how it has the potential to mobilize. We can also see how on a local level we can really start visioning this future, the communities that we want to be part of. We can see how we can grow, see our campaigns winning. We can also see it was like, COP and G7, while they're happening in the UK, they're international events. So it really ties in with how ultimately at the moment, there's these very small number of people who are making decisions behind closed doors that will then affect the whole world, and particularly those who are already most marginalized. And getting connected is, I think one of the really fantastic opportunities that we have being part of these coalitions to mobilize on the first day of COP, being part of the environmental, what XR is doing to mobilize, and also building those local connections in our communities when running these campaigns. So yeah, I think it presents us with this really great opportunity. So the roadmap, and again, as I said before, this is all very rough. And the reason that we're presenting this in its rough state is because, I think it's really important that, we are a decentralized movement, and we are also all about kind of changing the way we make decisions. And I think it's really important that we're all kind of on this journey together, rather than just presenting this perfectly polished, finished idea and going, everyone do it now. This is like, this is our movement and this is what we're doing together. So this is the very rough roadmap. And I don't know if anyone else had one of these car maps when you're a kid, but it's a bit nostalgic for me. So there you go. So spring. So this is the kind of the timeline as it looks a little bit at the moment. So from March to May, which we're entering into right now, this is the time for kind of spectacle and mobilization, coming out of hibernation and really getting some attention behind us as Animal Rebellion. We've already seen that starting to happen with the Vandalism, which was just done and has been making a storm on social media. So trying to really get our name back out there and remind people that we're still here, we're still organizing. G7 is happening in June in Cornwall in the summertime. Going to be beautiful, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. And in July and August, we're hoping to run a training camp, which will be following on from G7, which will give people the opportunity to learn more about organizing, develop skills in support roles for actions, as well as taking action together. And then in November in Glasgow, we have COP. So this is going to be a big mobilization for a lot of different groups. So it may seem far away now, but I think it's like, I know that Airbnbs are already getting booked out. Like, this is going to be the place to be in November. So we're going to be there as well, of course. So as well as that, throughout the whole of that time, we'll be seeing the council campaign happening, as well as continuing to grow local groups, which are the lifeblood of organizations like Animal Rebellion. So yeah, so I've got like a season by season breakdown. So we'll just go through that quickly, and then we'll be able to have questions and discussion. So what this could look like. So spring, which we've just entered into now. I hope everyone has been able to see the spring flowers popping up in their parks. And this is a time for rebirth, spectacle, and mobilization. So there are 2 to 3 big actions being planned from about March to May. These are actions around the council's campaign, as well as around fast food. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch, because we're always looking for more people to be involved in these actions. They're probably going to be smaller numbers, because we're still going to be kind of moving out of lockdown, but splashy and inspiring and high spectacle, things that will hopefully get us in the media. This will allow us to start mobilizing for COP and for the rest of the year and what we want to do. And it will allow us also to start building connections and working with our allies in the environmental and animal justice movements. So these are things that are already happening, that are being planned by groups. Animal Rebellion, anyone can take action in the name of Animal Rebellion, as long as you follow our principles and values and our messaging. So this is kind of like a guideline of what I know is already happening. There might be heaps of other stuff happening, and there's nothing stopping anyone from creating an affinity group and starting to take action as well. So summer, so June to about September, this will be, our chance to train and act. So we'll see the council's campaign continue to grow, as well as potentially the launch of the national level of that campaign, looking at the national food guidelines. We'll also see G7 happening in the middle of June. So this is happening in Cornwall, and it's a chance for those who can to really be part of a lot of action, a lot of activity down south. There'll also be solidarity actions happening in major cities and hopefully by local groups as well. So it's not like if you can't go to Cornwall, there's nothing going to be happening. But I think it's going to be a really great opportunity to really start to see what the energy is looking like, because a lot of people right now are seeing G7 as almost like a warm-up for COP. So the issues that are talked about at G7 are probably going to be recurring at COP, and decisions made at the G7 are probably going to be things that will affect the conversations that are had at COP in November. So we're wanting to be supporting local organisers in Cornwall in June, and also organising these national and global solidarity actions. And then there's July or August or September, kind of towards this latter half of the year, where we're hoping to have a training camp plus days of action. So this is where we come together, and as I mentioned earlier, learning these skills of organising, and all the different skills that go into planning, you know, mass mobilization. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, as I know most of you know, with media, with developing alliances and things like that. So this will be a chance to take all that we've learned and really pass it on, and then build this momentum leading up to November. And that leads us into autumn, so September and December. So this is the 1st of November, is the first day of COP, and COP goes for about, well, it goes for 12 days. So what we're hoping by this point is that we've built coalitions with other groups, and we have this mass participation big march on the first day of COP, where we see 10,000 people in the streets of Glasgow demanding a plant-based food system. We also want to be seeing, you know, our iconic creative actions happening around the UK. So it's not just going to be in Glasgow, it's going to be, you know, in London, in Manchester, in local groups around the country and around the world. And this will be, I think COP is going to be a chance for all of us to mobilize. 10,000 is easy. Yeah, 100,000. Let's think big. And of course, you know, as well as acting, we'll be training as well throughout that, running sessions on, you know, how we can develop and how we can grow as an organization. And finishing up with a big effort to absorb the people who we've mobilized and recruit into Animal Rebellion to allow us to grow and plan for what is next. So easy peasy, right? That's our whole year. But what about local groups? So local groups are the lifeblood of Animal Rebellion, and it's not just that. They're not just the place where we have, you know, people able to go and mobilize. They're also the place where we can really start to make change. We might not be big enough or kind of powerful enough at this stage to make policy change on a national level yet, but we are already seeing how we can bring about change on these local levels. So throughout 2021, we're going to be continue growing the plant-based schools campaign, which will be shifting local councils and their decision making to, you know, kind of this idea of a plant-based food system. But as well as that, so for groups who aren't running the council campaign, or in addition, local groups are going to be the hub of training and mobilization for Animal Rebellion. And this is always kind of how it goes. Like, it's not just, you know, that we come to a rebellion kind of wave and everyone pops out of the woodwork. Like, this is where people can meet and connect and develop as leaders and, yeah, in their local groups. So we'll need leaders, and we'll also need people to organize local and national actions for those who can't make it to Glasgow. So, you know, I think local groups are where the real work happens in Animal Rebellion. They're where the really kind of exciting connections form, and where, you know, people can form infinity groups who take action together, where people can plan and mobilize together. So I think, you know, this is a great opportunity, if you are in a local group, to start being creative, to think about how you can organize around and use your local issues in your local context to make change in your area. So what is next? So tomorrow we have a day for all ICs at Animal Rebellion. So ICs are the internal coordinators of teams, and they'll be starting to look at this strategy and start to develop roadmaps for their teams. And we're also hoping to have one of these for local groups in the very near future. We're also hoping to have soon a discussion space, which will build on ideas further, and all will be welcome for that. And teams and local groups can, start to develop their 2021 roadmap. So thinking about these kind of key events and thinking about how you might organize around that. There's work on messaging and visuals, which is happening right now. And if people are really keen to get involved with that, don't hesitate to get in touch. There's always more to do. And I think, it's really exciting to think about what messaging we can use that is really going to drive home what we're trying to achieve. And also like what are some really key and visually appealing like posters, stickers, banners that we can start to develop now, which will get people excited and mobilized. And also I just want to say like what excites you. You can like start planning now. Start planning for what's next for your local group, start planning for what's next for your team, start thinking about how we can start to mobilize around COP. And as Ben just put in the chat, we're going to have a country/global wide vandalism campaign on the 27th and 28th of March. So this is where we will be going around like our local areas and putting up some of the posters that we've seen to really kind of get those spread out and also take action as a group and start to build those connections. And get excited, get motivated, and get mobilized and start organizing. So that is everything from me. Thank you so much. Sorry, my voice was starting to go towards the end of that, but I wanted to get through everything and make sure that we had time for discussion. So I'll open it up now for questions from anyone. Thanks, Ben. Cool. And I'll also say I'm going to send these slides as a follow-up email, as well as some links to other things that might be useful. So that is a very good question. We're actually looking into short-term lets in Glasgow at the moment, rather than Airbnb, because they're going fast. So if you have connections in Glasgow, that's going to be essential. So definitely start thinking about where we can camp. Hashtag Spot Cop. Yeah, Ben?
So the worry with COP is it's Glasgow in November, so it gets dark at 4, which is a bit of a downer. So when you say the warm up, Cornwall really will be the warm version of COP. The COP for softies, but then Glasgow in November is.
So basically, for G7, we're all going to be like camping on the beach and going swimming every day, and then for COP, we're all going to be rugged up in our parkas and hidden under blankets and doing nighttime actions. Yeah, Ben?
So I'd add though for COP, because it's really exciting, the idea of the coalition of orgs for the big march on the 1st, a non-spicy day, because they don't want, none of them would like to do it if it's anything illegal going on. But that's great for people just to show up for the day and get like the train back, which addresses that problem a little bit.
Yeah, and I also want to say, like, throughout all of this, we never want to make it a time where if you can't come to a specific place, you're going to miss out. So this is where, national actions, local group actions as well are really going to come into play. So we can make sure there's stuff happening all over the UK rather than just in one location, and all over and globally as well, hopefully. Because I think like all of these things that I've mentioned, they're not just UK kind of issues. They just happen to be happening in the UK this year. So they're international global conferences that, there's going to be a bunch of people in the room with a lot of police around them making decisions about our future. So let's not let them. Amazing. Any other questions or just comments, things that excite you, things that you're unsure about, things that you're already doing in your groups or teams that you want to share? Yeah, Joe?
I was just going to say, yeah, in messaging, we've been doing some messaging working groups, and I'm trying to get one like up and running that's about reaching out to local communities and also like working with local groups to like help do like targeted messaging and stuff. So if anyone's interested in getting involved with any stuff like that as part of like the 2021 strategy, then yeah, get in touch with messaging, because yeah, we're looking to like mobilize them groups as well.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I just see a question in the chat from Sarah saying, did Animal Rebellion have specific policy demands of the COP26 and links to politicians who can have input into policies that could be put forward by the UK government team? Yeah, really good question. So this is something that's currently being worked on now. And like, this is something that we definitely need more people working on, because, you know, it's a bit of a knotty area, trying to figure out what is actually the remit of COP. What I know for sure is that, well, what I know kind of potentially is that it looks like for G7 at least, XR are going to be focusing on fossil fuel subsidies. That's not confirmed yet, so don't go speaking that too widely, but that looks pretty sure. So there's kind of a potential there for like looking into subsidies, but there's also what we definitely know at this moment is that we want to be making sure that we're getting plant-based food system into the environmental movement at COP. So that will be definitely a big thing that we're trying to do. So we might have also specific kind of policy demands at the same time, which would kind of go hand in hand with that. But the kind of primary goal is to really drive home like plant-based food system into the environmental movement, who are going to be present and building those relationships. We do also have some contacts with MPs who are quite supportive of us, and we're kind of so Kerry McCarthy is one of them, as well as another person whose name I forgot, so maybe Alison. Yeah,
Caroline Lucas is great, and she's really, yeah,
thank you so much. So yeah, those are two MPs that we've been in contact with, so they've been providing us a lot of support as well. Do we know what XR are doing about accommodation or camping in Cornwall and Glasgow? So don't know for sure. In XR's kind of current document about COP, they've talked that, you know, it will be kind of like probably similar to the September Rebellion, with people having to try and find their own accommodation, because, you know, finding houses is going to be a lot harder. I think they may also be looking into like places to camp as usual, but because it's going to be kind of towards the end of the year, and in Glasgow it's going to be very cold, so camping is not the best option. So yeah, that's something we're still kind of, I think there's still a lot of talk about, but like as Animal Rebellion, we're kind of just looking into what are going to be the best options for that. And also we're also thinking about making sure there's some really key dates that people can kind of come up for. So it's not so much, you know, you have to be there for the full time, but also providing options as well where we can. There's a question in the chat that I'll pass to Nunu. Oh, sorry, that's just a comment from Charlie that Mid Cornwall XR have started a list where their members offer accommodation. Oh, amazing. Cool. Nunu?
Hold on.
Hi. Do you have in mind the COVID situation? Because we never know what's going to happen. And I definitely want to go to Glasgow, but we'll see, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, yeah, as I said, like at the start of this, like all of this is contingent. And this is kind of like what we're looking at now and based on kind of projections right now. But like everything we do is subject to change, and we'll keep changing, keep adapting, keep updating as well, and working with everyone in Animal Rebellion to figure out next steps and moving forward. Ben?
Yeah, I'd say because Cornwall is on the 11th to the 13th of June, but certainly we've been talking about in London, doing some actions in London. This is what XR are planning as well, in like the lead up to G7, to raise the profile of the issues on the lead up, and that's like really something that people can do around the country as well. And then like maybe like leave those dates themselves like fairly free, so if people want to do both, so people can go to, because it might be quite hard in Cornwall to do anything resembling an organised action because of the police, so it'll be more like a show of support and hanging out in the sun in Cornwall. Well, it's so hard to know at the moment.
Yeah, and like as I said during the talk as well, it's like, you know, all of this will be developed by teams in Animal Rebellion. So this is kind of like a bit of a guideline, a bit of a roadmap, a bit of a suggestion, and then the kind of actual like details will be developed by working groups and local groups and all those who are going to be taking action. Oh my gosh, Gordy, who is that? Hello, sorry, distracted. Was that a finger from Brian, or are you just, yeah. Oh, you're muted. Oh, you're muted, Brian. There you go.
Sorry, forgive me. Yeah, I'm wondering how involved Animal Rebellion is sort of the ongoing problems like fox hunting and badger culling, in addition to obviously the main emphasis on farming. I'm coming mainly from a sort of a badger protection zone, and I'm especially concerned about the political resistance to the data, the honest data that is being provided to places like DEFRA and AFA, and their resistance to any sort of scientific information. I don't know if people are interested or not, and so stop me if this is not the right emphasis for this meeting. But we're trying very hard to ask through freedom of information requests something that if they actually shared the data, they would then have to stop badger culling. It is that crucial. Okay, so I would like to know how involved in something like this Animal Rebellion would be if we find that a government department is denying information, which we know is the case. We would like support in spreading this information. Do you see my point? Yeah, please forgive me. Yeah.
No, not at all. So I'll respond, and I'll say that, so I know a lot of individuals within Animal Rebellion are involved in like a lot of these issues, seeing some from Nunu and also from Charlie. I think there's some like, we try it really hard to kind of like fill one kind of pie chart and like really go hard on one message, which is why we are seen to focus so much on kind of like plant-based food system. But I also know that, you know, we have done kind of like wildlife actions in the past, like on Halloween, we did one about like grouse shooting in Scotland. And we're also kind of, we try and talk about animal and climate justice in tandem. So sometimes when there's like not a really clear link between animal and climate justice, we find it hard to talk about it, just to kind of keep our messaging really kind of on point and really strong. But definitely, like, I don't know if you have any information about if you work with a group or anything like that. And like, if you do, feel free to like put it in the chat. And also feel free, I'm going to put my email in the chat anyway, if you want to send me an email about this as well, because yeah, I think it's a really important issue and topic, and something that I know a lot of people within Animal Rebellion do work on and care about really strongly. So, oh, thanks so much for that, Alison.
No, thank you, Harley. I will look forward to communicating through email with you. Thank you.
Amazing. I'll just chuck my email in the chat now. And yeah, we can keep going. And maybe, I don't know if anyone else is kind of working on this a bit more, or knows some kind of contacts, maybe put them as well, or maybe message Brian as well, because I think that's a really good point to bring up, and a really important topic, because yeah, I think we all know like that the government resistance is such a big barrier to overcome in all of these issues of just the constant hiding of information and refusing to address it. So yeah, thanks so much for bringing that. So I think I saw, yeah, so Pete also put in the chat about where will the summer training camp be held. Very good question. I think we've had a couple of fields offered to us, not sure where they are, but I think this will be something that will be decided kind of closer to the time. It also might be an opportunity to, you know, explore the UK a bit, I guess. Like, you know, we're going to Cornwall, hopefully, going to Glasgow, hopefully. Maybe I'm just excited because I'm Australian, but you know, we do get, like, we have gotten a lot of comments about being very centralized in London in previous years, and this making it quite hard for other people to get involved. So hopefully, you know, we can find other locations and places where we can do these kind of things, and Brighton would be lovely. And it would also be a chance to like tap into what our local groups are doing and work with them to find places for this. So yeah, really good question. Amazing. So yeah, any other questions or points of discussion before we head back into our Friday nights, hopefully with a bit more energy and excitement for what's coming up? Cool. I'm going to call it then for the night. So thank you all so much for coming. It's really great to see so many faces, old and new. Central would be nice for the training camp. We never do anything in the center, so that's a great idea. And yeah, really great to see you all, and really excited for what this year is going to bring. Barcelona, yes, please. So yeah, let's get thinking, get planning, get talking, get connecting, and make 2021 a year that we cannot forget, and the government, importantly, cannot forget. So I'll see you all very, very soon, and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Harley.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
That was good.
Cool.
Great. All right.
See ya.
See ya.